I'm excited to have Catherine here. She is the first athlete that I've seen in Austin that I was like, dang, this girl is she's got it. You really, really got it. I think I was really appreciative of there was one reel that you posted that you were talking about eating steak, eating milk, drinking milk, and eating good food. And I was just like, yes, finally, a girl who understands that you can be athletic, you can be fit, you can care about athleticism and being stronger, and understand that the way to get there is not starving yourself.
Totally.
In malnutrition.
It's actually the worst way to get there is trying to do it in a way that you're restricting yourself, whether it be calorically or just in the foods that you're eating. And it's crazy because I feel like we as a society have kind of come up with all these different health alternatives that are great for some people. And don't get me wrong, some people are gluten intolerant or some people are, dairy free or whatever, and all of that's fine. But we have these fads that we follow and we just assume are going to translate into a body that we want. And it's just no, that's just not how it works.
Someone asked me on Instagram, actually, even this morning, he was like, why on earth did we start demonizing gluten? I was like, yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I work with girls who, struggle with eating disorders and stuff. And it's just it's so interesting that 98% of you guys claim to not be able to digest gluten when in my real life with people who don't have EDs, I have one friend out of the hundreds of friends that I have that is actually literally anaphylactically allergic to gluten.
Yeah. And it's the same it's the same with dairy.
They hop on these fads. Yeah. Of, I think that this is
or
the
veganism
way.
Or vegetarianism or whatever it may be.
Well, I was vegan for 5 years.
I was vegan for a year.
Oh my gosh.
It was because I had an eating disorder and I just would tell everyone that I couldn't eat anything.
I love that you just said this. I already love this.
That was how I managed my eating disorder as a passing person with an active ED was I would just say I was vegan. So I can't have that. I can only have vegetables.
It's a socially acceptable way to restrict.
Yeah.
And it goes unchecked because there's the moral aspect of it of oh, this is so good. You're doing something good for the planet. This is amazing. And you get this morality boost as well at the same time, which can be very dangerous. Okay, wait. So I want to hear a little bit of a backstory here.
Sorry.
So this obviously wasn't your you weren't always a nourished athlete.
No.
Okay, what happened here?
Yeah. So I let's take it back a little bit. So when I was young, when I was in high school, I had a sexual assault experience that I think brought out a lot of my issues with eating later on. It was just kind of trauma that was unsolved. So around my senior year of high school is when I really, really started struggling. And I was an athlete all my life. I played lacrosse and field hockey competitively and East Coast girl. So East Coast sports.
I literally am I'm from California. I'm we don't have lacrosse over there.
They don't have it in Texas either.
Yeah, but it's a great sport. Love it.
Yeah. So anyway, I developed an eating disorder through tracking food and trying to lose weight and trying to shrink myself because I thought it would make me a better athlete or whatever.
Do you feel in lacrosse there was a lot of pressure to be smaller?
I think lacrosse is a very privileged sport. So a lot of the girls are smaller girls who look the same. And I was never fat, I wouldn't say, but I was never them either, So I think it was tough, and I would watch other girls eat on my team, and it didn't look like the way that I ate. I also grew up in a Lebanese family, so
food's a big
food
thing.
Culture, is huge. So anyway, that got tough, and I got small, really, really small, lost my period, and that's when the veganism journey started.
Okay. Were you shocked when you lost your period? Were you this is not right?
Yeah, I mean, it was confusing to me, and I was kind of oh, maybe it's just my birth control or whatever, but my birth control had never done that before. So, so it was one of those things where it was just I think the irregular period stuff, I was so young at the time that I didn't really realize it was correlated until later. But
I didn't even realize it was a big deal. I lost my period at 14, and I literally I think the first time I recognized I lost it, I remember I bled, I spotted for a day when my period was supposed to come, and then it didn't come back. And then I remember thinking like, that's a little weird. But it wasn't until I was like 25 that I was like, wait a minute.
It's also
this is bad.
It's glorified. It's like
period.
kind of glorified to not get your period. Like I have so many friends that are like, I'm on this birth control and I just don't even get my period. And I'm like, ooh, I like personally wouldn't want that for myself, because now my period is such a biomarker for me that I'm like, knowing that I'm getting my period every month is like important to me. Like it's like I want to get my period.
It's very important.
Sucks,
and I also feel like it kind of is a reset for me.
Yeah.
Like it's like everything that happens in the month, every single conversation, every single experience that I had, it kind of gets like, it gets shed as I have my period. I don't know. It's very like kind of cathartic feeling at times.
It's also like honoring your stages of your period and like learning and leaning more into those has been super empowering for me as a young woman too. But anyways, I literally vividly remember going to my doctor and being like, hi doctor, is it better? Like, will I be skinnier if I start drinking almond milk? Like, I remember that conversation.
What did the doctor respond to?
She was like, you can drink whatever you want. Like, the doctor really didn't say like milk was bad, but I wanted her to say milk was bad. You know, like I like had seen stuff on social media or whatever, and I was 18 and like, that's what I wanted to hear. So I walked away from that with thinking that milk was bad, even though the doctor did not say that milk was bad. And went on this veganism journey and was the smallest I've ever been, and super unhealthy because I couldn't eat anywhere. I would get frustrated with my family. Like we couldn't eat together anymore. My family was like not sure how to connect with me.
I'm sure. I mean, I don't have a Lebanese mom, but I have a French mom. Okay. That was like a big thing. Like you don't eat butter. Like, what are you talking about? You don't eat butter. That's just like not a thing.
Right.
So there was a lot of contention in the household over like my diet because I wanted to eat just like
us
plants
too.
and
it
vegetables.
Was tough. I used to try to like make my parents like vegan meals and they'd be like, ugh.
Oh my gosh, I would too. I think about all the meals I made my dad that was like tofu curry.
Yeah, awful. Anyways, which to people who do it correctly, maybe not, but for me, it was not a sustainable way of living. But so went on that journey, was vegan for about a year into college, and then basically got to college, started binge drinking and binge eating like badly. But I was already binge eating like throughout the entire time, my senior year and stuff.
Probably because of all the restriction. Can I like just put this down a little bit?
Yes.
We're gonna have to watch out.
Totally because of all the restriction.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I had to classify my eating disorder, I would say I had like a binge eating disorder. And it was bad. And so then
it's probably made you feel like I need to control more.
Right.
Because I'm so bad and I don't like have constantly control over food.
Tisk, like you're fat today. I weighed myself every single day, multiple times a day. And if I woke up and I weighed more than 130 pounds, I panicked and I would not eat and I would work out for hours. It was bad. But that was like my first experience with trying to actually work out like outside of a sports setting. Because I was planning on playing college lacrosse. That was like the plan. And then that didn't end up happening. So I feel like I went down a rabbit hole and then I gained all this weight and I was super unhealthy in a different way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, different way and probably similar. It's a lot of the same issues that probably just were never resolved here.
Right.
That can just, I mean, it's
so
just
like when you
in a million directions.
Restrict, and then suddenly start like stuffing your face again. Like it was like the minute I turned not vegan, I just gained like 60
But it wasn't
pounds.
Even like,
because
it sounds like it wasn't even just like stuffing your face. It was like, there's still something big here that I haven't dealt with.
And it was emotional and it was having to do again with that sexual trauma and then also having to do with like the fact that I was just constantly hating my body. Like my body was never in its good form. It's like after going from high school where I was trying to be my smallest, then I got to college and I was like, oh, maybe I want to have a big ass. Like that's actually who I'm going to try to be now. And then like, but it was never, I could never just like be okay with myself. It was like, no matter how my body looked, like it was never
You're always a
good.
Project.
Yeah.
You're always, there's always something that's wrong.
So then I got into CrossFit, and CrossFit was like super great for me at first. And then I got obsessed with it and it was no longer great for me. And I think what happened was I got back into this cycle of like macro counting and stuff and seeing entire food groups as bad. And I was like struggling to get through my workouts and things like that because I wasn't nourishing my body correctly. I was eating, I want to say 1,200 calories a day. And that was prescribed to me by nutritionists in the space that I was in.
So I've worked with this girl for like a year.
Yeah.
We got her in a good place. Then she was like, okay, I'm going to go on my own for a little bit.
Yeah.
When we were on our little break, she hired a coach that was all about like reverse dieting. And like, it was all, you know, you're supposed to add in 25 calories a week, right? But like, they only wanted to get her up to 1,500. I'm like, 1,500?
Yeah.
Like that's the cap here. That's the
crazy.
max of what you can eat. I'm like, that's like fucking breakfast for me. Like it's literally insane.
It is.
And these girls are spending all this money to these people. Like,
but this just goes to show you like the things that you see on social media or the people that you are leaning into the most, like sometimes they aren't actually the right fit. And like I paid for so many nutrition coaches, I can't even tell you. And all of them had me on restrictive diets to a point where I thought fruit was bad at one point. No. I thought, and so it's kind of like you need to be aware that if you're going into a situation like a coach, like it's someone in the nutrition space, it has to be someone who either has experienced this or knows how to work very carefully around it. And
also someone who doesn't demonize food. Listen, like at the end of the day, I love my health. I have very good principles of health and I eat everything.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
I had chicken wings last night and then we got gelato. Like I eat everything because health doesn't require you to be perfect.
Right.
And health isn't like, oh no, you had pizza and you're so bad and this is the enemy. And it's like, that's what creates an unhealthy relationship to it.
Totally.
Pizza's neutral to me, so I can eat it and not really care about it.
Well, and that's the problem when you start attaching food with like value in a sense of like a reward or like a cheat meal or whatever it may be. It's like, okay, well, if you can only have gelato once a week, then like
you're gonna get it.
I need to eat all the gelato. And it's like, well, no, like just let yourself have a little bit of gelato whenever you want it and your cravings for that will change kind of thing. So yeah, so I think it's tough. Like you have to be really careful because there's a lot of noise. And if we listen to all of the noise on different platforms of whatever of these girls who are doing bikini competitions and weigh next to nothing for a day of their lives and lose their periods and fuck up their hormones and all the things, like that's not really realistic. And that's also not really going to give you a fulfilling life. So I feel like I had to learn to let go of the calorie counting. I had to learn to let go of feeling like a prescribed amount of calories was the right way for me to go about my food journey.
And that you can't vary from it in any way, shape, or form, which talking about like the cycles that we mentioned before, it's like we are different at so many different points of our cycle. And like doing your luteal phase right before your period, a lot of women's metabolisms jump and you need more calories
during my luteal.
I literally get so hungry, like 4 days before my period. Like I'll know it's coming because I'm just all of a sudden like my normal just like breakfast won't cut it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I need to like add bacon to this and cheese on top. And I'm like, we need to actually eat more.
Totally.
Yeah. So when you're so like, it has to be 1,200 calories, it's like so anti our feminine physiology when 100%. It's like you're supposed to be shifting and changing though all the time.
Right. Yeah, so I think then from there, I lost my dad. And then I think and that was like during COVID too. So my dad was like my hero. My dad was like a champion of all things woman. And I grew up really lucky. I had a super badass mom and super badass dad and sister and family and everything's just great childhood. So losing him was really tough for me. And I think I felt super alone in the world after that. And then I slipped back into an eating disorder pretty severely. It was like already kind of happening right before it all happened. And then
it's just,
And I also have ADHD. So I was also on Adderall for like my entire childhood.
How did that impact your appetite?
It impacted it. And I didn't really realize it until later, but then when I realized that Adderall was helping me like stay skinny or whatever, I was also not viewing Adderall as a tool for my ADHD as much anymore and like thinking of it as an appetite suppressant.
Yeah.
And that I feel like really happened around the time of losing my dad. So Then I got like super obsessed with exercise, and over exercising. And I think the thing about being an athlete or being someone who trains a lot that I've had to lean into the most is, yes, like food and performance and that and fueling your body, but also knowing when your body needs rest and knowing that like overtraining is just as bad for you as
not training at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was severely addicted to exercise for 11 years.
Yeah.
I mean, hours a day. Yeah. I had, it's bad when you have like 12 gym memberships.
Yeah.
Because like I couldn't go to the same one multiple times a day. Yeah. So like I had to like switch it up, go to Gold's in the morning, go to Vasa at night, go to like, whatever it was, yoga in the afternoon. And I thought I was so healthy.
Yeah.
I thought like, this is amazing for me. Mm-hmm. I have so much endurance. Like I prided myself on it for so many years, not understanding that I was literally just depleting my body so much. Yeah. And I was never even improving with my fitness.
Right.
Like, but I was so numb because I was chronically like under eating that my cortisol levels were so high that like I never got sore. It didn't feel as if I was overtraining. Whereas now with like cortisol levels normal, hormones balance. Yeah. Oh, if I like do a heavy leg day, like I feel it and I can't make myself do another heavy leg day again that day or the next day. Like I know intuitively to rest, but I was never getting those like check-in mechanisms because my body was just like high cortisol all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Cortisol is like a new thing for me, but I've been reading and learning a lot about it, and it's actually wild. So
it's a really wild hormone, and it does a lot. And I think the important thing for women to understand is that cortisol is made out of cholesterol, just like your estrogen and your progesterone, and there's only a certain amount of that in your system. And so when you need high amounts of cortisol, it's going to go in and it's going to steal primarily from your progesterone. Yeah. Progesterone just won't be created when cortisol is there. Yeah. And so then you have like cortisol high and estrogen, progesterone can just like dump all the way down. It's kind of this seesaw effect. Yeah. So we want to bring this back up to normal. I mean, we'll have cortisol in our system, right? That's like natural to a certain point. But when it's excessive and all the time, that's when your hormones they can't do it.
Totally. Yeah, that's interesting. So anyway, overtraining and then like realized I was overtraining. And
how did you realize that? What was going on?
I was exhausted all of the time, and I was losing out on time with my friends and my family because I was so stressed about getting to the gym and like trying to like, I was again tracking every calorie and like then eating a slice of pizza and having this immense amount of guilt and feeling like I needed to go work out for 4 hours. And this is where CrossFit became toxic for me. Was there's a lot of people in CrossFit gyms that overtrain. And so I was watching all of these people and comparing myself to these people who are like elite athletes that I had no business. Like unless fitness is your job, like you don't need to be working out for 5 hours a day. Like that's just stupid. And I think sometimes Instagram and stuff like promotes this idea of like do hard things, like be hard.
Oh, you have to like low light reels with them at the gym. I'm like, they romanticize like being at the gym and make it look like,
and like that's
you're only strong if you do this.
Yeah, and like that's cool, but it's like also like not really realistic for most people. And so anyways, then basically I decided I was going to take a step back from CrossFit. I knew I wanted to stay, and this was when I was in Austin. I knew I wanted to stay fit. So I started Olympic weightlifting, and it completely changed my life because I was a ham. Like I was suddenly training for performance, eating for performance, putting on a lot of weight, having to be comfortable with putting on that weight, watching my clothes no longer fit me because my muscles were getting massive. And it was cool because it was like the environment that I was around, it was very like, let's get fucking strong and like, let's like go
so interesting because I always thought that like CrossFit was more about like being strong. I never got like into CrossFit myself, but you're saying the community feels a little bit more diet culture.
Well, CrossFit is about being strong, and don't get me wrong, CrossFit changed my entire life. Like I'm so grateful for it, but I think like individual gym cultures can be a little bit toxic in the CrossFit space, and I think it's tough because like the CrossFit body is like you're like this weird hybrid in between of being like strong or like lean or maybe not at all. And the tough part about CrossFit is like there's a lot of skills involved. So then there's like some hierarchical stuff, I think, with that, where it's like, it is super welcoming, but then it also feels like shit to not be able to do a bar muscle up and like feel like the reason you can't is because you're bigger than the other people or whatever. So, but Ollie lifting changed my life, which is actually a really big part of CrossFit. I got an amazing coach. I had an amazing team, and it was just fucking awesome. And I feel like that's where things started to shift. But I'm super into this idea of like body neutrality lately, where I'm like, okay, I wasn't happy with where I was at then either, because like I was getting strong after a while. I was getting stronger, but like I wasn't fitting into like women's clothing anymore because my traps were so big, and like that made me feel self-conscious. So I had to dial it back, and my coach ended up moving, and I walked away from Olympic weightlifting and all things CrossFit, and honestly all things exercise for like a little bit, and then started. It's
probably really good after all of that to like just take a break. Yeah.
Then I finally went back and started doing like conventional, like functional bodybuilding type of working out. And it was cool for me for a while. I was finding myself going to the gym for an hour and a half every day or whatever, and like leaving, and I was like, holy shit, like this is really cool. Like the gym is no longer like the only thing I do with my day. I'd be lying if I said to you I still don't sometimes get stressed out if I like miss a day or whatever, but
you're on your journey.
Yeah, it's an ever evolving thing for me.
I took 8 months off to get myself to that point.
Really? Where you were like, I'm okay now?
Yeah, I told myself, I was like, well, one, I had to get my period back. I was like 25 years old and I still didn't have a period. I was like, this is just ridiculous at this point.
Yeah.
And I told myself, I was like, Chloe, do not go back to the gym until the day you don't want to go back to the gym.
Yeah.
Like I knew that I needed to like reset even like my desire to be there. I was like, you need to understand that like you can live life and you can have a good life and you can be very like engaged in your life without the gym.
Totally.
And once you understand that, once you're at that point, then you can go.
Yeah.
And it was a really weird experience because by the time I like, introduced it back in, I almost was like, do I want to? I mean, and I love it and I totally wanted to, but like it took me a while because I was like, I do have a good, really solid foundation of just like my life being super fulfilling.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I was needing to use it at all for like a coping mechanism or to help me like process through emotions. Like I think those 8 months helped me learn how to process through my emotions, my frustration, my anxiety and everything without movement. Yeah. Movement can be great for that too. Like yesterday, I'm deep in my luteal phase. Like period, please come any day now. And yesterday I hit it. I hit the wall. I was just super depressive yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to make myself go to run club. I'm going to like get some movement in and see if I can get out of this funk. Yeah. And it helps. It totally helps. Yeah. But I know that I don't have to rely on that anymore to be the thing to get me out of a depressive funk.
For sure.
And I think that's
the balance.
That's the balance. It becomes really unhealthy when it's like the only way my mind feels calm is when I like go on a run.
Right.
It's like, oh.
But then there's also to that point, like there's also like a lot of people who like say that they're mentally well or emotionally well or promote on whatever that they're emotionally well and mentally well because they're fit. And I'm like, those two things like actually aren't related. Yeah, like if you aren't doing the work and the things that you need to do outside of whatever your fitness level is, if you're walking around and treating people like shit, or if you're walking around and not handling your demons and saying that you don't have to handle your demons because you're doing hard things. Because
you can lift a kettlebell above your head.
Because you can run a marathon. Like those two things do not coincide. And I am super of the belief that like movement is medicine in a lot of different ways. But at the same time, like movement for expression can be a beautiful thing, but only when it's paired with self-awareness and only when it's paired with you taking yourself outside, to your point of working out or whatever, and finding your why and finding your value for yourself, just removed from all of that. Because like we weren't all put on this planet to just walk around and become like little athletes or little whatever. Like we were put on this planet to make positive connections with each other, and that has to be the thing that we come back to. And I think sometimes that's just so lost because we're just pushing like, let's go, like let's be hard, let's do this, like all this shit. And I'm just like, okay,
for what?
But are you mentally well? Like, how are you doing?
Like, I say this a lot, that it's like I never, like, my goal isn't health.
Right.
I know that, like, sounds weird, but my goal really is not to be healthy. My goal is to be a really good aunt, to be able to have my own kids one day, to, like, be a good partner to my boyfriend, to, you know, it's like my goal is to be present in my life, to have a purpose and all of that. Now, being healthy helps me actually achieve that goal, which is fucking rad. Like, now I can actually go ahead and do that because I have a baseline of health, and I'm so super, super grateful. But the second that health becomes like, that's it, I just want to be healthy for the sake of healthy. And it's like, I just want to be able to go to the gym and look a certain way and like look a certain way. But that's what I'm saying. Like that in and of itself negates being healthy. So you have to make sure it's in check. And being someone who I love the gym. I love pushing my body. Played soccer all growing up. I'm from a surfing family. I've always been around like moving your body, and I love it. But I always have to make sure, like, and is this in check? Is this like on a pedestal, really? And is like the other areas of my life, are they actually being nourished as well? Because health isn't just eating well and working out. Health is like emotional stability, being able to process through trauma.
How are you carrying yourself through this world? Like, it's just not. And I think sometimes I get frustrated with Austin specifically, because I'm like, there's a lot of that here where it's just like,
well, that's why I told you in the beginning, I was like, I found someone finally in Austin that's like a healthy athlete. All these girls I look at, I'm like, you're a client, you're a client, you're a client.
I
like,
know.
You are definitely a client. Like,
it's also super male dominated too in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of the voices we're hearing and the advice that we're getting is from men. And I'm just
so
like,
different.
Your experience walking through this earth, like, you are waking up with testosterone every single day, and maybe even taking it too, because Lord only knows. But like, we don't have the same experience, and like, I'm not going to get my nutritional advice from someone who's not walked in my shoes.
I'm super grateful that my boyfriend really understands that. Like, when I tell him like, nope, I'm about to get my period, I don't want to work out, he's super like, receptive. Yes, great, don't like, if you want to go on a little walk, do that. I'm gonna go to the gym. Like, he understands that.
We love
like,
this boyfriend. I love this boyfriend.
We really do. We really do. No, I love him. He's great, but he does understand that, like, hey, we are totally different. I was listening to a really interesting interview the other day with this doctor, and he was talking about, he was like, this girl came into my office one day, and she was like, I have such a high sex drive. I want sex all the time, every day. And he was like, I'm actually really scared that you said that. Like, you as a woman shouldn't have a high sex drive all the time. That makes me very worried about your testosterone levels. He checked her. Of course, her testosterone is super high. She had PCOS, and he was like, you're at a high risk for developing cancer because of your high sex drive. Because he's like, you should have moments in the month where you don't feel like it. And like, I know I have that. And again, it's good to be with a partner who respects that, who understands like, oh, you're just not at the time of month where this is like enjoyable for you.
And sex is a weird thing too, because it's like, it's really I would say it's something that is just not always cohesive. I feel like there's a lot of relationships where people just feel like they like have to be having sex for things to be,
well, because it's performative, and it's, I need you to like me, and the only way I think that you're gonna like me is if I perform for you and give you this, which is not a partnership, and that is not how it should be.
And it was like super impactful for me, because I was like trying to be thoughtful about what I was eating and things like that, but I was also still allowing myself to just like enjoy my life. And
you're figuring out balance for yourself. What does it mean to like to care and to pay attention to this, and also to live my life?
Totally. And it was like super cool, because it was like, I felt like I took my power back from my eating disorder a lot in that moment, because I felt like if I was going to slip at any point, it was going to be during that. But the conventional gym, taking some time away, like being okay with working out 4 days a week, which was new for me. And now I feel like
you have like structured rest days.
It was wild. And
you guys, it's a game changer. I don't want to work out more than 4 or 5 max days.
You know what the crazy thing was too? Like, my body changed in all the ways that I like had hoped that it would. For all of these years, I was like, oh, I wish that I looked like this. I wish that I started resting, and then all of a sudden my body healed. So like, it was
glad
weird.
You mentioned that, because a lot of the girls who I work with, they are just so like attached to, I just want this aesthetic. And now there's a healthy version to that and there's an unhealthy version to that, right? Like, I think it's totally fine for us to want to feel strong, to look a certain way.
Yeah, be confident.
But there's definitely a very fine line where that slips over into unhealthy. But I'm like, okay, you do understand, though, that, like, that body type requires you to eat a lot to actually build muscle and requires you to rest from the gym. But you got to build up your metabolism. You got to have balanced hormones, and that's going to require you eating food and not just eating rice cakes and salad. I'm like literally mean like eating steak and potatoes and drinking milk and adding like cheese on top of your tacos. Like, it's going to require you to actually eat more. And I love teaching women about their metabolism so that they understand that. So it's like, you do realize that like these goals that you want are actually found in you working with your body and not against it. But we were like, when I was young, the only way I knew to like shift my body was to eat less and exercise more. Like, that was it. That was all I was told. So I was like, great, I want to change my body. I don't like my body. This is what I'm going to do. I wish someone helped me understand, like, there's a way for you to understand your body, to work with it, and to understand your hormones so that you can actually be strong and hit these athletic like goals that you want to hit. Because again, like, you are an athlete. You do want to like progress.
For 75 hard, I actually tracked for a little while, but it was funny because it was the first time in my life I was tracking over 3,000 calories a day. And the reason I was tracking was because I was trying to make sure I was eating enough. And it was like a wild paradigm shift because my roommates would be like watching me like try to make sure I was eating enough. By this point, I was like starting to train for a marathon by the end of it. And so like I had to eat a lot because I was exerting a lot of calories with all the running and stuff. And it was so funny to me because I was like, if you had told me 3 years ago that I would be sitting here trying to make sure that I'm eating enough,
at least 3,000
would be, I would have laughed in your face. Like, I would have been like, no, like I only eat broccoli, like whatever. And so it was cool. It was like a cool power back moment for me. And
I feel that shift happening a lot is that like we as women are reclaiming like, I ate like I ate a hot dog, I ate a hamburger, I ate all these things. Like we are like kind of finding empowerment in that again.
The other interesting thing too recently for me has been like there's a lot of like alternatives. Like people being like, okay, like take out the maple syrup and just use sugar-free maple syrup. I was a huge proponent of that. I still have sugar-free maple syrup in my fridge right now. Or like, don't use honey because there's too many calories in honey or whatever, like all these things. Like, let's use fake shit instead. And I'm like, well, or you just like eat the honey, like, and it's better for your body because it digests in a way that is not going to ruin your gut.
There's a ton of vitamins and minerals in honey. That's
like that's just one example, but there's so many where it's like I'll watch people on Instagram post things about like, like make these swaps. Like if you are craving like pasta or whatever, just put pasta sauce on your steak. And I'm like, no, like
it's not
just
pasta.
Fucking eat pasta. Like let it go. Why are we giving so much power to these foods or like looking for substitutes
thinking
all
that
the time?
It's pasta that's wrecking us.
And it's like
go to Italy, they're eating pasta all the time. Go to like, I always laugh when girls come to me and they're like so afraid of bread because it's gonna make them gain weight. I'm like, really? Because my mom's French, and when I go to France, we eat bread at literally breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. We're eating bread all day. And like, there's not a single person who has obesity in my family.
I just ran my first ultramarathon this past weekend, and it was a rogue ultramarathon. And the night before, it's like so interesting because with running,
what does that mean? It's a rogue.
It's so rogue, like it was unorganized. We just went out, drove out to Marfa, and ran in the middle of nowhere.
You drove out to Marfa and just decided to run in 105 degrees.
I was crewing my friend Keith, who is doing this super cool project called Just Fucking Run, and it's got a super cool meaning. And anyway, he was doing an 100K, which is 62 miles, and I decided to run 32 of them with him. So it was my first one.
All in one go.
All in one go. And
how are your knees?
My knees are great. And it was so interesting because I'm thinking about it and I'm sitting there the night before and I'm housing bread and pasta, right? Because the next day I'm planning on doing this big endurance challenge. And before my last marathon in June, same thing. Like I'm eating like so many carbs, just like bags of rice and all these things. And it was another moment for me where I was like, wow, like this is crazy. This is how I know that I'm now fueling for performance because I know that tomorrow I'm going to need these carbs. So like I'm sitting here eating this food because food, to me, I love it because it tastes good. And I'm such a foodie because of that cultural background that I came from. So I honor all of that all the time. I love trying new things. But also, like, now I view food as a way to truly allow me to do the things that I want to do, which is super cool. Like, I am getting ready to do this really cool epic thing with my friends in the middle of fucking nowhere. And I'm sitting there housing this bread because I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to want this bread tomorrow. And then, you know, all through the run, like, endurance is interesting too because I'm eating. Like, you stop. We have a fat ass mango. We have, like, whatever it is that, you know, we want. We're drinking Dr. Pepper. It's like, you know, you have to have these carbs to be able to sustain you and perform. And I would have never been able to run 32 miles had I not fed myself. Yeah.
Well, I think I love that because it's helping you realize that if you want to live life and do all these experiences, you need to have a good relationship with food.
Totally.
I remember when I was like getting out of this whole thing with food and I was eating lots, right? I think in the beginning it was very like, you don't know where your relationship to it is yet. You're trying to develop it again. And there was a lot of like, oh my gosh, I just ate to a lot of fullness. And like, that's okay. And I had a lot of compassion for myself, understanding that like, I was going to figure it out. But like, I always tell girls, I'm like, you need to royally mess up food in order for you to have a good relationship with it. Right? I'm like, I need you to experience what it's like to just finally allow yourself to eat the whole bag of chips. And then like over time, we're going to normalize that. It's going to be fine. But I would tell myself in those moments that I would like eat the whole bag of chips or eat the whole loaf of bread, whatever it was. I would just be like, this is extra nutrients for my hair.
Yeah.
This is extra, like, this is an extra, like,
I actually do that
right?
too.
This is more like, I would just tell myself like all the things that these extra nutrients were going to so that I stopped seeing it as like, this was a waste. This was like too much. This was unnecessary. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm going to have thicker hair now. My hair's going to be shinier. Like,
it's actually
I'm going to have
so
stronger
funny.
bones. I'm like, okay, why am I mad about that?
I literally do the same thing. And like that, it's done that for me as far as performance and stuff goes. So yeah, I started running in March and, I like the way that I eat has completely changed because I'm starving all the time, to be honest, because I just can't eat enough. Like I like can't have enough. I'm running over 50 miles a week most weeks. Like that's a lot. Crazy. And then I still go to the gym and whatever. So I eat a lot. And it's funny because there will be moments where I'll be sitting there and I'll just be going to town on like a bag of chips or whatever. And I do have those same internal conversations where I'm like, okay, Catherine, like stop. Like if I feel myself getting stressed. And I think that there's this big myth kind of where I think once you've struggled with eating, it's really hard to understand what normal feels like or what normal should look like. And it's also really hard to understand that when we live in a culture where really honestly not a lot of people have healthy relationships with food. And I think that that's been the struggle for me is I'm like, sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I really want these chips. Like, I'm going to eat these chips. Like, if I eat this entire bag of chips, like, it's going to hurt my stomach. But what if I want this entire bag of chips? Like, what is the healthy way to think about it? You know what I mean? And so I find myself in that a lot still to this day. And I've tried to be more intuitive and just, like, listen to my hunger cues and things like that. But I have to tell myself the same things. Like, this food is not going to waste. This food is the reason that I'm going to be able to get up and run tomorrow.
I think with that, it's, like, first and foremost, coming to the, what was I going to say here? I like had it in my mind while you were talking and then it just like totally left.
Talking about
I think normal. It's getting rid of the idea that there is a normal.
Yeah.
Like that really helps again because we are so different throughout the month, throughout the year, throughout the season, right? And also I'm different than you, you're different than me.
Yeah, our needs are different.
It's understanding that it's like every single day it's going to be completely different and that's okay. And like you just want to have that like non-judgment with it.
Totally.
Of like, yeah, there are moments, you know what, just eat the whole bag of chips. Yeah. And life comes with stomach aches.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're sometimes so worried of like,
my God.
but I got a little stomach ache. It's like, okay, it happens. Like, you're human. Like, you're allowed to get a stomach ache. You don't need to like spend your whole life trying to micromanage food to avoid a stomach ache. Like, it happens. And over time, I think the more years that like you get out of the ED, you know, like it's really separated. Like I'm like 5 years out now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not even something that I ever think about or struggle with.
Right.
Like it is so rare that I have moments like that.
I told myself I was allergic to dairy for years. Like I truly believed that I was allergic to dairy. I'm not allergic to dairy. Just like I'm literally not. And honestly, most people aren't. Like it's just that we get.
Are you doing the raw milk? Are you on that train or what do you want?
I'm like working on getting the raw milk plug in Austin because I love it.
Cool.
but I don't really have it yet. So local
the
Pastures,
Sapien Center right here, like literally across the street. Yeah, they sell it. It's like $16 for a gallon. You put in your order before Monday.
Okay.
And then I pick it up on Wednesday.
Okay, yeah. I love raw milk. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And the boys, Harry and Brett,
I'm
drink
sure
a lot of it. But it's like so interesting because, I mean, I didn't eat dairy for a long time, and then now I eat dairy again, and I fucking love dairy. And I'm like, why did I not eat
I had a bagel today.
Dairy?
I'm like, I literally spread twice cream cheese on top. I'm like, I want a thick slather of cream cheese.
Yeah.
It's such an important element of my diet. I couldn't imagine it being gone now.
I know.
Like so many important nutrients come from that. And I was so fearful of it for so many years.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but here I am eating it now.
Yeah.
And I have a monthly menstrual cycle. I have muscle mass on me. I like have great digestion.
You're
I have
healthy.
balanced hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had to start understanding that's like, despite what everyone's saying about this,
right,
my body only shows me that I'm healthy when I eat everything, including dairy.
Yeah.
And so that again was another thing that helped me get out of it. Cause I was like, when I was eating everything when I was younger, I was healthy.
Yeah.
Like I was extraordinarily healthy. When I came in trying to do low carb and keto and then vegan and then all these things, that's when my health was messed up.
Yeah.
And so then I learned, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a bagel with cream cheese and bacon and an egg on top.
Yeah.
And some fruit and like.
Something that really has helped me is thinking about adding things to my plate. Yeah. I'm like, okay, if I want to, like, I know for my body that I need to have protein with most meals that I have, and I take my protein very seriously.
I think that's like a ex-vegan thing, because I literally, if I have like a veg day, I will, first off, I don't eat very many vegetables, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't crave them as much.
Yeah.
But if I like don't get any meat in, oh my gosh, I
feel depleted.
I feel so depleted.
No,
but it's like ridiculous how depleted I feel.
There's something scientific to that, because most women deal with iron deficiencies.
Low iron, yeah.
And we have, I want to say 20 amino acids in our body. We can only get 9 of those from like naturally occurring sources. And the rest we get from meat. Like we get from eating meat mostly. Like that's the best way to get it.
Yeah.
And people just, and we need those for our energy levels. We need those for our hair, for our skin, for our nails, like to anti-age, make sure our bone density is good. And we skip out on protein. And I'm like,
so it's so weird to think. I used to fear that I was like getting too much of that stuff, right? Like when I first started, I was like, oh, I'll eat a little bit of dairy. I'll have a little bit of meat. But I'm like, why, when it's like the most nutrient dense source of these things that I can find for my body to work? So why am I afraid of eating too much meat or drinking too much milk? I'm like, I just don't get it anymore.
I don't get it either. And it's like one of those things where the micronutrients and stuff that you need are literally found in the proteins that you're eating and in the dairy that you're eating. And I mean, if we think about our evolution, like we're carnivorous people. We are, that's like how we came.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the company that you work for?
Yeah.
Because sure. I'm in love. I did a couple of Instagram reels.
Yeah, we love you. You're like our favorite UGC.
But I love it. I love finding products that are like, I can fully stand by this. And I like really genuinely love what you guys are doing. And I want my like girls to know, because they are like the people who need that. Yeah.
So it's actually super cool and honestly pretty new to me. Like I wasn't someone who supplemented with organs long before working with them.
I'm French, and so I always grew up eating pate, foie gras. Like my mom would make beef liver, chicken livers. Like it was just known that you eat all those things.
Yeah. So that was all pretty new to me, but so I work for a new startup supplement company called Noble Origins, and it launched from a podcast called The Meat Mafia. Harry and Brett, who are...
They're meat lovers over there.
They are, and they're also the loves of my life. They're both just like wonderful young men. Yeah. And so I am in charge of partnerships for them. And basically we have 2 products right now. We have a protein powder that is blended with organs and then blended with beef isolate, which is really cool because whey is technically a dairy byproduct. So it's a product of the cheese making process, but it's almost like the leftover protein, I guess, from that process that is put in whey. So a lot of people have a really hard time digesting it, and it causes a lot of
just bloating and
just, discomfort. So the whole idea with the beef isolate is we're actually getting our protein from the muscle of the cow.
Cool.
So it's just a lot more nutrient dense. Then you're also getting a ton of really great micronutrients from the organs. And then we also have collagen peptides in there, and colostrum, which is full of gut healing enzymes as well. So
if you don't know what colostrum is, that's like the mother's first milk.
Yeah, we humans have it too.
Yeah.
Human mothers, I mean.
Which has a ton of nutrients, because if you think about it, that's like the first feed for an animal, a human, and it's flooded with good probiotics and everything like that.
Yeah. So it's awesome. I take it every day now, and like I've seen such a difference in my energy levels, and I'm iron deficient, and so supplementing with the organs and stuff has been huge for me. But also it's really lean protein, and you're getting all of your amino acids that you need, and it digests a lot better. It's kind of interesting because it's almost as if you're eating a steak as opposed to taking a protein powder. And sometimes eating or taking too much protein powder can be a good or a bad thing, and this kind of removes that from being an issue. So,
well, I think it's important also. Muscle meat has a certain amino acid profile, and then organ meats have a certain amino acid profile.
Yeah.
And when we eat too much of only the muscle meats, that can actually cause a lot of imbalances in a couple of different amino acids. And so it's so important that we get the organ meats, which is what we used to do. We used to eat like nose to tail, right? Which again, back to like my French culture, like you eat pate, you eat liver, like that's just something that's always added in.
Yeah.
And that actually is to help balance out all the muscle meat. So I've been loving it. I've been doing it nearly every morning. I kind of oscillate between like I'll do AG1 as well. Yeah. And then like I'll also do a smoothie with the Noble protein powder. But I'll do raw milk. I'll do banana, some ice. Like the chocolate Noble protein is my favorite, and then like blend it up. It's so good. It's so good.
And it's great. And it's giving you, kind of that balanced source, which is super exciting. So we just launched in Austin, and we have some really exciting things on the horizon. So look out for us. But nose to tail nutrition is huge. And it's also like, again, going back to the things that we have always needed as humans.
Does it seem weird now that you went vegan?
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Well,
it's not weird.
I can't.
Like, how did I make myself think that?
I love steak. Like, I love meat. I've always loved meat. Also, being Lebanese, like, we eat a ton of like lamb, and red meat is a huge part of that. So it's kind of just
a lot of
crazy. Yeah, like I can't.
I do a lot of, I'm not gonna lie. Well, this is boyfriend's favorite food, and so we eat it probably 3-4 times a week. Okay. But we'll go to Whole Foods and we'll get a big, nice Wagyu steak.
Heck yeah.
Like, literally, I eat a lot of meat. I love meat, but I'm not gonna lie. My like meat has increased. My meat consumption has increased so much since dating him. Because like we do a lot of lamb, lot of lamb and chicken, and my mom never really cooked steaks that much. So it's been like a big thing, really on a very consistent basis now. Yeah, like eating a ton of steak. Yeah, and he has the whole butter slabbed on top, and I mean, I love it. I love it.
No, I mean it's. And I think like I was actually talking to someone about this. There's some studies that females feel, maybe because of our like nurturing complex, that we like are more likely to be vegan or are less likely to eat as much meat. And I think it's actually really interesting, this idea of femininity and masculinity and how that plays into the amount of meat that you're comfortable eating. And it's like you don't really see a lot of guys that like go vegan.
I mean, I can't even get my boyfriend to eat a salad. He's just like, that's a waste. Why would I eat that? That's like a waste of space. That's doing nothing for me. He literally just wants rice or fruit and meat. Yeah. Like, that's it.
Yeah. So it's just interesting. Like, I think there's like this idea that we have that like girls don't need as much protein or shouldn't be eating as much protein or maybe shouldn't be eating meat. And I'm like, well, actually women probably need it more than men. Like literally for our hormones and
for future childbearing, if you're gonna have kids. Like I see so many women step into pregnancy really, really, really deficient because they kind of bought into the narrative of I need to eat a salad for lunch. Instead of like, no, you can actually eat something hearty and like a burger and like you can eat actual food. I mean, we're going to build the nervous system, the heart, the body, the skeletal structure of a baby. Yeah. Like, we're going to build that. It literally comes from...
That's even more crazy than veganism.
This is something that I found out the other day that I was like, wow, so cool. You know how a lot of mamas, like, our hips will widen, we'll gain a lot of weight, especially in, like, the lower half of our body? The nutrients specifically that are meant to really build the nervous system of the child is coming specifically from your ass.
Really?
From the fat cells in your ass, that's where your body is designed to pull out nutrition to give to the baby to build this nervous system.
Huh.
Isn't that so cool?
That is really cool.
And we're over here going like, oh shoot, like I'm gaining weight. This is so bad. And I'm like, your baby is literally.
Your baby's going to be
that is where you store your nutrition.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have to have like a higher body fat percentage as women, because
that's interesting.
we need to have that nutrition there in case we're going to get pregnant, which can happen at any time, really. Like, irrespective of if you want kids, your body doesn't know that. It just knows that you're designed to have kids.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. The female bodies are so just fascinating in general because like they endure a lot, and I don't feel like we like talk about it that much, to be honest. It's kind of, we just put our heads down and like handle shit, which is badass, but it's also just like
also can lead to burnout.
Damn, like we go through a lot, and we also are expected to constantly be on when we're going through all of these things. So yeah, it's interesting. And then thinking about going back to like food and being an athlete and all of the things, it's like, it's weird because I feel like food is something that I don't want to ever have to hyperfixate on ever again. Like I just want it to be something that is natural, a part of my everyday. Yeah. And I think a lot of girls who I know who like were athletes in college or whatever, have coaches or have people who are always hounding them all the time. Like whether it's making sure you're eating enough, like I was just talking about, or making sure you're, you know, eating specific things or whatever it may be. And like really the best way to go about it is like, we as women are super intuitive, like trust your body. Like we just don't trust our bodies very much. And if you're hungry, eat, you know?
Well, I think it's because we don't trust where our body is going to land, because we have in our head this idea that we need to be a size 2 and we need to weigh 100 pounds. And then it's like, well, I can't trust my body. It's going to want to be 130. And it's like, yeah, because you probably should be.
Exactly. Because that's healthy.
Because that's a perfectly normal, healthy weight.
Right.
And 100 isn't for an adult woman.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
very interesting. I love this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. I learned so much about you. It was super, super fun. I will put down, of course, her Instagram and everything down below. And I'll also link the Noble products if you guys want to check that out. I've been loving them. And honestly, you guys need more of those organ meats in your diet. So like definitely make sure you order some. It's definitely worth the investment. I'm just like all for just making sure I get everything now. That abundance mindset, right? Like I want it all because I understand how important it's going to be for my health.
You need it all.
Yep. All right. Thank you, lovelies. I will see you later.